ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरये। नष्टम्बरायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 25, the characteristics of King Puranjan. We are at text 25. So, we are seeing that King Puranjan sees the queen, and there is a description of the queen. The queen here is intelligence. Intelligence of the living entity which wants to enjoy sense gratification without, separate from the Supreme Lord. So that is the whole theme is going on. Text 25. तामाह ललितं वीरः सव्रीड स्मितशोभनां स्निग्धेन अपाङ्गपङ्गेन स्पृष्टः प्रेमो उद्भ्रमद्भ्रुवः. Translation.
Puranjana, the hero, became attracted by the eyebrows and smiling face of the very beautiful girl and was immediately pierced by the arrows of her lusty desires. When she smiled shyly, she looked very beautiful to Puranjana, who, although a hero, could not refrain from addressing her. Purport. Every living entity is a hero in two ways. When he is a victim of the illusory energy, he works as a great hero in the material world, as a great leader, politician, businessman, industrialist, etc. And his heroic activities contribute to the material advancement of civilization. One can also become a hero by being master of the senses, a Goswami. Material activities are false heroic activities, whereas restraining the senses from material engagement is great heroism. However great a hero one may be in the material world, he can be immediately conquered by the lumps of flesh and blood known as the breasts of women. In the history of material activities, there are many examples like the Roman hero Antony, who became captivated by the beauty of Cleopatra. Similarly, a great hero in India named Baji Rao became a victim of a woman during the time of Maharashtrian politics, and he was defeated. From history, we understand that formerly politicians used to employ beautiful girls who were trained as Vishakanya. These girls had poison injected into their bodies from the beginning of their lives, so that in due course of time, they would become so immune to poison and so poisonous themselves that simply by kissing a person, they could kill him. These poisonous girls were engaged to see an enemy and kill him with a kiss. Thus, there are many instances in human history of heroes who have been curbed simply by of Krishna, the living entity, is certainly a great hero. But due to his own weakness, he becomes attracted to the material features. Krishna Bahirmukha Hana Bhoga Vancha Kare Nikatastha Maya Tare Jhapatiya Dhare. It is said in the Prema Vivarta that when a living entity wants to enjoy material nature, he is immediately victimized by the material energy. A living entity is not forced to come into the material world. He makes his own choice, being attracted by beautiful women. Every living entity has the freedom to be attracted by material nature or to stand as a hero and resist that attraction. It is simply a question of the living entities being attracted or not being attracted. There is no question of his being forced to come into contact with material energy. One who can keep himself steady and resist the attraction of material nature is certainly a hero and deserves to be called a Goswami. Unless one is master of the senses, he cannot become a Goswami. The living entity can take one of two positions in this world. He may become a servant of his senses, or he may become master of them. By becoming a servant of the senses, one becomes a great material hero. And by becoming master of the senses, he becomes a Goswami or spiritual hero. Hare Krishna.
So, text 25. Tamaha Lalitam Veera. So, this Veera, the great hero, when he was attracted by the eyebrows and the smiling face of this beautiful girl. Okay. So, of course, the Puranjan is being spoken about is the intelligence. The girl is the intelligence. And later it will be described. When she smiled shyly and looked very beautiful to Puranjan, he began to address her. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains the word Veera in great detail. The Veera means the hero. So Prabhupada says here, Srila Prabhupada describes here Veera, hero. There are two types of great hero. Those who perform great activities in the material world and those who perform the great activities in the spiritual world. Right. So both are. So when somebody is captivated by the and then performing the activity, Srila Prabhupada gives example of controlling the senses is also a great heroic activity. So, it comes to my mind one very beautiful example of a of a conversation between a devotee and a boy. So this devotee was training some boys, and these boys used to get up every day in the morning, come to temple. Teenage boys, 16, 17, 18 kind of age, 8, 9, 10th, 11th boys, standard. And one boy, he came to Prabhuji, that devotee, and he said that Prabhuji, all my other gully boys, they are joking with me. They are saying that mard jaisa raho, what you are doing, simply putting tilak, ye wo, hum dekho kaise maja karte hai, and everything else. And then this devotee said that, then what did you say to them? He said that mard ho to mere jaise reh ke dikhao. Get up at 4 o'clock. Come to temple at 5 o'clock. Chant the way I am chanting. Read Bhagavatam the way we are reading. And then wo sare chup ho gaye. So these are the heroes Prabhupada describes here. So one will make the material, the material civilization, the material cause ahead. Another will take the spiritual cause ahead. Right. What Bhagavad Gita expects is that become both the heroes. Bhagavad Gita explains, Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha. So both are required. It is not that one over another. Especially when in the Grihastha ashram phase, and most of the time, most of the devotees, most means 99.9999% of the devotees are going to remain Grihastha. So they have to contribute to the society and they have to contribute to spirituality and become both the heroes. There is always the tendency of hero being attracted by the material beauty. And Prabhupada counts the example of Antony and Cleopatra. Prabhupada writes the example of Bajira also here. Okay, so became a victim of a woman from Astani. And that became a very turning point in the Maratha politics. That Mastani was not very well accepted. And then, that was a point of contention. And then there are countless examples of Nagakanyas, Vishakanyas. They are being trained, and these Vishakanyas, Prabhupada writes that how they used to be trained, and why Prabhupada writes. We'll come to that in a minute. That since their very childhood, certain girls who are extremely beautiful, they will be selected and they will be given a small doses of poison. So much so that very soon, as a child, they become immune to poison and they literally become Vishakanya. And they are trained to behave in such a way that they are trained to uh, behave in all the feminine gestures, and they are trained in the personal beauty in such a way that all they have to do is just try to go close to the king and just kiss him. And as soon as they could do that, the poison will be injected, and they will be the king will die instantly. And there are examples we have seen in the history that this Vishakanya came to the house of one particular king. Now, names we will not take. And seeing the benevolent nature of the king, and the king got attracted. And seeing the benevolent nature of the king, the Vishakanya, she said that, my dear sir, you are attracted to me, but let me tell you, I am Vishakanya. And then he said, whoever you are, I want to enjoy you. And she said, you cannot enjoy me. You cannot even, if I just touch you and kiss you, you will be finished. And he said, no problem. And then she said that you will die instantly. And the king said, no problem. And then she said that not only you will die, as soon as you will die, they will capture me. They will realize who I am in the guise of some sevika or something like that, and they will kill me. And then said that that is also not a problem. And eventually both of them died. So this is, Prabhupada says, this is how the danger of danger of the whole thing is. This is how the poisonous girls were engaged to see an enemy and kill him simply with a kiss. Right. And then Srila Prabhupada quotes very famous verse. We'll recite this verse. We have recited this verse many, many times. Krishna bahirmukha na bhogavancha kare
कृष्ण
Krishna Bahirmukha na bhogavancha kare.
nikatastha mayatara jhapatiya dhare.
Nikatastha maya tare jhapatiya dhare.
So this is the prayer from Prema Vivarta, and where it explains that when a living entity wants to enjoy material nature, he is immediately victimized by the material energy. Nikatast Krishna Bahirmukha. Krishna bhuliya jeev. Similarly, verse comes. Bhogavancha kare. Nikatastha Maya will immediately capture and victimize such a living entity. And often this victimization takes place on the merit of the lust, and therefore one has to be careful. Prabhupada says that better to control the senses and become a Goswami, and thus he can become a spiritual hero. Right. Very. So now, I mean, here on till almost like most of the fifth canto, it is a very strong dose of Vairagya in Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam is, again, we have to see the deeper context of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is spoken by whom to whom and at what context? Right. It is spoken to Parikshit Maharaj, who is on the verge of death, by Shukadev Goswami, who is Vairagya Chudamani. So, one has to be very careful. I'll just tell you what happened with us, I mean, my batch, and especially with me. When we became devotee in 1996, 1995, 96, Camp Temple there was a chapter which I still remember. The chapters were going on that time. Bhagavatam series was the forest of material enjoyment. That is though such a deadly vairagya dose it is that I mean, and we were so captivated by the newness of Krishna consciousness, the beautiful Krishna consciousness. We were not knowing that there are certain things which have to be taken as as inspiration, and there are certain things which have to be taken as directly following. And then there are examples of that how material world is this, Maya is this and this, and all this through we had no direct explanation of this Deshakala Patra. We had no direct explanation of understanding the age appropriate. These two words we never heard, or maybe we heard, we never realized that the importance of this. So it was such a, I mean, we used to do lot of seva, we used to do lot of thing, and all this in first year, second year engineering, with all engineering study and everything. And somehow by Krishna's mercy, we knew the knack of scoring the marks and everything. So what I want to say is, what we listen is not to be immediately followed, right? What we listen has to be understood and eventually realized. Correct. So this point is very important. Okay. Text 26. Because here a lot of Vairagya is going to come in here. Okay. And especially Narad Muni is very famous for Vairagya, by the way. Katvam kanja palashakshe kasyaasiha kutasati imamupapurim bhiru kim chikirshasi shamsame. Translation.
Translation. My dear Lotusite, kindly explain to me where you are coming from, who you are, and whose daughter you are. You appear very chaste. What is the purpose of your coming here? What are you trying to do? Please explain all these things to me. Purport. The first aphorism in the Vedanta Sutra is Atahato Brahma Jigyasa. In the human form of life, one should put many questions to himself and to his intelligence. In the various forms of life, lower than human life, the intelligence does not go beyond the range of life's primary necessities, namely eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Dogs, cats, and tigers are always busy trying to find something to eat or a place to sleep, or trying to defend and have sensual intercourse successfully. In the human form of life, however, one should be intelligent enough to ask what he is, why he has come into the world, what his duty is, who is the supreme controller, what is the difference between dull matter and the living entity, etc. There are so many questions, and the person who is actually intelligent should simply inquire about the supreme source of everything, Atahato Brahma Jigyasa. A living entity is always connected with a certain amount of intelligence, but in the human form of life, the living entity must inquire about his spiritual identity. This is a real human intelligence. It is said that one who is simply conscious of the body is no better than an animal, even though he be in the human form. In Bhagavad Gita 15.15, Sri Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hriday sanivishto mataha smriti ranyanam apoham cha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. In the animal form, the living entity is completely forgetful of his relationship with God. This is called apohanam, or forgetfulness. In the human form of life, however, consciousness is more greatly developed, and consequently, the human being has a chance to understand his relationship with God. In the human form, one should utilize his intelligence by asking all these questions, just as Puranjana, the living entity, is asking the unknown girl where she has come from, what her business is, why she is present, etc. These are inquiries about Atma Tattva, self-realization. The conclusion is that unless a living entity is inquisitive about self-realization, he is nothing but an animal. Hare Krishna.
So Puranjan began to speak to her. Oh, who you? Kanjapala Shakshi. Kanjapalasha means the petal. Kanjapalasha means, Kanja means lotus, Palasha means the petals, and Akshi means eyes. Oh, Kanjapalashakshi, kindly explain to me, Kasyasiha kutasatihi. Oh Sati, greatly chaste lady, from where you have come from and where you are going, what is the purpose, what you are trying to do here, and who is your father, whose daughter you are. So all this, typical Bollywood song, "Kaun ho, kahan se aayi ho," that that these are all coming from Srimad Bhagavatam, by the way. Janmadi yasyatah, origin of everything. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains the first aphorism of Vedanta Sutra is Athato Brahma Jigyasa. One has to inquire, and especially Athato, therefore. Why therefore? That now we have the human form of life. Now you inquire. Now inquire what is the goal of your life. Otherwise, the inquiry is always there. And the birds are chirping, when the animals The dog is barking, and the animals are, they're all inquiring, but their inquiry is about the basic instinct. Ahara nidra bhaya ityadi. That is where their inquiry is. Where I will get food, ahara nidra, where I can sleep, without disturbance, so on and so forth. But in the human form of life, one has to inquire on a higher tattva. Consciousness is so developed that one can go beyond the base instinct and inquire about what is the origin of the universe? What happens after this life? Is there a life after this life? Is I am separate than matter? What is spirituality? Who is God? What is my relationship with God? These all these are made known to living and questions are made vibrant in the life of a living entity as soon as he attains the human form of life. Who makes this? The Supreme Lord from within. Mattah smritir jnanam apohanam cha. The smriti comes from the Lord. These questions will come to the, and then, but in the lower forms, these questions are these questions are forgotten, made forgetfulness. Why? Because apohanam cha tattvam is acting on the animals, and therefore Prabhupada says one has to inquire about Atma Tattva. Without inquiring about Atma Tattva, Srimad Bhagavatam calls such personality as Dvipada Pashu. Dvipada Pashu means two-legged animals without inquiry about the absolute. Text 27. Ka etenupathayeet ekadasha mahavataah etavalana subhru koyam tehi purassarah. Translation.
My dear lotus-eyed, who are those 11 strong bodyguards with you? And who are those 10 specific servants? Who are those women following the 10 servants? And who is the snake that is preceding you? Purport. The 10 strong servants of the mind are the 5 working senses and the 5 knowledge-gathering senses. All these 10 senses work under the aegis of the mind. The mind and the 10 senses combine to become 11 strong bodyguards. The hundreds of women under the jurisdiction of the senses are addressed here as Lalanaha. The mind works under the intelligence, and under the mind are the 10 senses. And under the 10 senses are innumerable desires to be fulfilled. All these, however, depend on the vital life force, which is here represented by the snake. As long as vital life force is there, the mind works, and under the mind, the senses work, and the senses give rise to so many material desires. Actually, the living entity known as Puranjana is embraced by so much paraphernalia. All this paraphernalia simply constitutes different sources of anxiety, but one who is surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who leaves all business to him is freed from such anxieties. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj advises a person who has taken to the materialistic way of life, which is never permanent but always temporary, to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and leave aside all his so-called responsibilities in order to get free from all anxieties.
So now he began to ask that who are the 11 strong bodyguards with you, with those 10 specific servants, right? And who are these unlimited women following these 10 servants? And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains the 10 strong servants the mind has, and mind plus 10, that make 11. These are the 5 working and the knowledge acquiring senses, Gyanendriya and the Karmendriya, and the 11th is the mind. And with the control and grip of the mind, all these senses are working. And then there are unlimited desires. Each senses, they have unlimited desires, and they are called as unlimited lalanas, who are carrying here and there. And Prabhupada says Puranjan is actually the living entity, and he is carrying paraphernalia. But looking at the paraphernalia, actually a living entity is embarrassed. What a strong point it is. Okay. So actually what happens is, it's just like, you have a kaidi. Kaidi means a criminal who is jailed. And then he shows that देखो मेरा shirt, देखो मेरा pant, the pajama type pant, and देखो इसमें कितने पट्टे पट्टे हैं, like that. that paraphernalia itself is an embarrassment for a civilized human being, right? There is nothing to be proud of. Similarly, the material body itself is the embarrassment for the living entity Puranjan. What to speak of the mind and 10 senses, and then unlimited desires that each senses they have. All this show a great distraction. Correct. And therefore, Prabhupada writes, actually, the living entity known as Puranjan is embarrassed by so much of paraphernalia. All this paraphernalia simply constitutes the different sources of anxiety. Correct. There is a classic story of Alexander the Great and his friend that Alexander wanted to conquer everything, and before moving, before proceeding for his conquest, he approached his friend. Some say Socrates, some say, and he was sitting in a hut. And he said that I want to conquer this after that, and then entire Europe, and then finally conquer India. And then he said, "What do you want to do?" And then he said that, and then I simply want to sit down in a chair and just relax. And his friend told him that you can do right away. My hut has enough space to accommodate you also. If you can just conquer your this desire to conquer the world, millions of soldiers' life will be saved, including your life. Right. So, living entity is actually embarrassed by the paraphernalia. But the same paraphernalia, when it is utilized in the service of the Lord by the glorious principle of Yukta Vairagya, then every zero becomes valuable, adds the value by tenfold. Otherwise, it is just a big, big zero that one is carrying it. Text 28. Yeah, so is there any question? What happens if the question becomes, we want to close sharply at 7:45, 7:46.
Hare Krishna. One small question.
Please.
We know that taking birth in Bharatvarsha is definitely coming from the past pious activity and everything. However, when we see ourselves and people around, I don't think we are valuing that. Plus, the kind of qualities people are displaying, that does not show that they are probably coming from that space. Whereas if we go to some of the other countries, we know that they may not call the rivers as their mother or something, but they keep their rivers very clean. They respect each other very nicely, etc. So how do we understand this, Prabhuji?
Yeah, right. Good question. So two things here. The one thing is when we say Bharatvarsha, it is not just Bharat. There is a difference between Bharatvarsha, Bharat Bhumi. Okay. And when the scriptures were spoken, entire tract of the land is called as Bharatvarsha. Of course, the Bharat that we live in is is a very is the crest jewel of that entire Bharatvarsha. But receiving human form of life is rare and precious anywhere and everywhere. Because of the elevated consciousness, human form of life is always precious anywhere. That is one thing. Second thing is, that yeah, I mean, Indians, we as Indians, we have to, see, India more is about, clean your house and throw the dirt on the street or in the river kind of a thing. And with Western world is, they will keep everything very clean, and that is really very praiseworthy. So I mean, nothing to no compromise on that. That is really praiseworthy. We call our, but I mean, the huge part of this attributes to corruption which is happening. You will not believe, even the Indian roads, any road you take, and if you just count that how much money is spent on that road, America to chodo, I mean, it will be 10 times American road that money has been put in by the government. But so much money goes in corruption that so many times The roads, naya road, 2 दिन में they will again, for some drainage line, they will open the road, then again close it. Then for, some another, water line, they will open the road, again close it. And it is just, and then again there will be better. I mean, there is absolutely no question of any town planning, this or that. Previously, I used to become so frustrated. Then I realized that I have limited energy. I mean, you become frustrated on what all things in life. Corruption चल रहा है, planning नहीं है, ये नहीं है, वो नहीं है. I mean, just leave it. So just focus your energy on one problem that you can at least begin to solve. Or so it is problem of corruption, Prabhuji, more corruption. And then the general civic understanding of Indians, the way we are trained as the, I mean, we can give that dosh to Britishers, call that, whatever we want to call it. But yeah, it is very true. India, we keep things extremely dirty. Now, accepting this, there is third angle also. What is the third angle is that the situation of law and order and the enforcement of law and order is extremely strict in the foreign countries. India, it is sab kuch chalta hai, I mean. And nowadays, even government also, uh, for the want of coming back to power, and even a good government to come back to power, like Maharashtra government, they had this Ladli Bahan Yojana, and 24,000 crore rupee was siphoned off by people who were not qualified for that Yojana. And 81 lakh Ladli Bahans were, they were disqualified from this Yojana, and the money was 24,000 crore. And they said that no, we are not going to recover this money from these people. जो हुआ सो हुआ, देखा आपका नाम निकाल दिया, आपसे अब ये पैसा नहीं मिलेगा. And that's it. Now imagine 24,000 crore, how many rivers can be cleaned? And they say that if we don't do that, some other incompetent government will come, and the total expenditure loss to the public in general will be more than 2 lakh crore, right? And they have their own statistics that RA Colony project was delayed by for some reason, and that one delay in that RA Colony project Bombay, that has costed more than 20,000 crores. So to come to the power, we may have liberally distributed or wasted 24,000 crore, but otherwise we would have wasted 2 lakh crore. So it's a complex politics, this and that, and then I mean, our energy is limited. So better we focus on the spiritual activity. But in this enforcement of law and order, there is no question. 3 बार signal तोड़ो US में, आपका life permanent for lifetime your license is cancelled. किसी का हिम्मत होगा signal तोड़ने का? So I mean so these are some of the issues. We have to lot to learn from the Western countries, no doubt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhupada. Thank you,
Prabhupada.
everyone. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanat Pranam.